All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this roundtable. Today's topic is casting a wider net, how inclusive recreation fuels Chesapeake Bay restoration. So just some background on these Chesapeake Research Consortium roundtables. This is a monthly virtual webinar series where we host targeted, inclusive, and informed conversations that match scientific advances and management needs. These webinars are designed for contribution, not consumption. So each seminar invites a diverse range of researchers, managers, and other professionals to have conversations around critical topics. The point of this is to build connectivity between all of us, provide a place to ask the clumsy questions, and to increase our collective understanding for decision making. As a reflection of that intent, the panelists today have about 25 minutes to give introductory remarks and talk a little bit about their work, and we will then follow with a 30-minute discussion. These webinars are recorded, and past webinars are available for you to view on the CRC website and the YouTube channel. Please feel free to type in your name and organization in the chat, and maybe your locations. People can kind of get a feel of where people are coming from today. And we also ask that you just stay muted with your camera off while the speakers are presenting. We like to start each webinar by asking why this topic, why now, and why these speakers. So this month, with June and the summer season starting, we're welcoming outdoor recreation season in the Chesapeake and want to acknowledge that the success of our restoration activities in the region takes more than just policy and science, but most importantly, people. When outdoor recreation is welcoming to everyone, it builds a broader base of stewards invested in the health of our local waterways, which benefits the bay and its watershed. So what does this look like in practice? Our speakers today represent two groups who are engaging underrepresented communities in outdoor activities that range from hiking to urban gardening to fly fishing. They demonstrate that there are endless avenues for fueling a passion for the Bay watershed and turning that passion into environmental progress. So I'm happy to introduce our speakers today. We have Phyllis Joris, the Executive Director at NeighborSpace of Baltimore County, Bree Winters, co-founder of Richmond Fly Women, and Kensey Barker, also co-founder of Richmond Fly Women. Both these organizations are trusted partners to the agricultural and restoration communities, and we're thrilled to have them today with us to share their knowledge and experience on this topic of outdoor recreation and building inclusive spaces. To the speakers, I will let you know if we bump up against the time, and we'll give you a 2-minute warning just to give you enough time to wrap up your remarks. And to attendees, please feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat as we go throughout the presentations. We won't get into getting into questions during the presentations, but we will wait for the remainder 30 minutes of this session to dive into those conversations. If we don't get to your questions during this webinar, we will give the speakers the opportunity to address them afterwards, and we'll share this out with everybody today who is registered in a follow-up email. And with that, I will turn it over to our first speaker, Phyllis.
Thanks, Daniel. Let me get this up. Is that good to go?
Yes.
That's great. Thanks, Abby. Hi, everyone. So I'm Phyllis Joris. I'm the Executive Director at NeighborSpace of Baltimore County. Super excited for this topic. I think it's a really good one, especially this time of year. So yeah, let's dive in. My contact information is here, but I have it in the last slide too, if you have any questions that we don't get to today. So what's NeighborSpace? We're a land trust. We're an urban land trust in Baltimore County. So in case you need a map, this is the red is Baltimore County, Maryland. And then our service area is restricted to urban Baltimore County. So that's the hatched area in the map on the right. It's a little hard to see, but sort of the purple line that curves around there is the city's growth boundary, and we work in between the city line and that growth boundary. So a lot of older neighborhoods developed, a lot of them developed in like the 1930s, all around the Beltway. I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit here, but why do we need a land trust in urban Baltimore County? It is the area of the county that's slated for development, so it might sound a little bit counterintuitive to have an organization focused on conservation there. But there's definitely a number of issues environmentally and socially that a land trust could and that we're working hard to address. So Lack of access to open space is a big one. A lot of these older suburbs were built without enough attention for that. So this is a map that we produced with we have a custom GIS tool that we use to measure need. All the yellow and orange areas have insufficient access to open space. So those residents don't have access to green space within walking distance. Even if they do, urban Baltimore County is not very walkable. All of the watersheds in urban Baltimore County are polluted, either for sediment or nitrogen and phosphorus, or both, or all three. And then there's a number of other environmental justice issues related to water quality, air quality, throughout our service area. So our mission addresses both the environmental and the social needs, which is a little unusual for a land trust, but here it is. We work to enhance the livability, which is quality of life, livability of communities by protecting, restoring, and stewarding land for small parks, gardens, trails, and natural areas. So I'll give you two examples in this presentation, but think of pocket parks is what we call them, small, anything between 0 and 5 acre neighborhood parks. We also have some larger wooded lots. I'll show you one in a little bit, but that's generally what our work looks like. In short, we say that we protect land for people. So right now we're at 116 acres, which is not a lot for a land trust, but that's spread across 22 sites. And of those, 19 are public. We do occasionally respond to requests for conservation of private land if that's environmentally valuable. So 3 of our sites are private, but the majority is open to the public. 16 of those have been restored with green and or gray infrastructure. We take a community-centered approach to every aspect of our work, and I'll give you some examples in a little bit. Over the last 2 years, we've been offering more and more programs in addition to our capital projects. So we have quite a few educational workshops. We co-host a lot of hands-on events with our community partners. And we also host social gatherings to get people out to the parks and neighbors connecting with each other. We just had 2 live music events this past weekend, which were really fun. We spent a good amount of time building capacity with our community partners, mostly stewardship capacity. And then we've run a few projects, and I hope to do more of these in the future to highlight local history. So tying into today's topic, we try to leverage those green spaces that we protect to go beyond that environmental benefit and beyond that property. So we engage neighbors with nature and with each other. We'll then educate residents really about the topics that interest them, about environmental, bay health, and then we'll encourage good stewardship practices, both at home, in the park, at work, throughout the neighborhood. So these are some photos on the left. This is one of the parks that I'll show you in a little bit. Neighbors at a cookout that we hosted last summer. In the middle are kids doing a bug blitz, looking for macroinvertebrates in the stream. And on the right, we have volunteers who are doing a stream cleanup and some invasive removal at one of our sites. So I'm going to give you examples at 2 of our sites just to give you an idea of what those activities look like and what the impact is. The first park I want to show you is called Chestnut Park, and it's in the Turner Station community in Dundalk. This is a photo of the community. Our park is actually lower beneath this photo. Neighborhood's bigger than what's shown here, but looking out southeast onto Bear Creek. This is a historically African-American community founded in the late 1800s, but it really grew during World War I when people started migrating north to come work at Bethlehem Steel. I'm sure most people here are familiar with Bethlehem Steel, but it was a huge steel mill in what is now the Port of Baltimore. There's other industry there right now. You can see the Amazon warehouses across the creek there. Heavily polluted. Bear Creek is an EPA Superfund site. There's a landfill that contains asbestos and other hazardous materials across the water. We have the port on both sides. You can see there's a BGE station there. So there's a lot going on here environmentally. Added to that, I'm sure it's not a surprise to anyone here, the community suffers from flooding, especially more recently with the effects of climate change, both stormwater flooding and sunny day flooding when the tides are up. So that's a threat to livability here for sure. So in 2020, we responded to the community's request to turn this vacant lot into a neighborhood park. This photo is a couple years old at this point, so we have raised beds, benches, more plantings. But this is what it looks like. So it's a triangular lot in between an alley and then a really busy road that's kind of the entry to the Turner Station community. So here we start, even before and during conserving a property, we're engaging with the community. We want to get as much buy-in, as much engagement, a sense of ownership as early as we can from as many neighbors as we can. So we cleaned up that park together with neighbors. Vacant lots like these are usually very overgrown. There's usually some trash and dumping that needs to be taken care of too. So we did that with neighbors. The photo on the top left here is, on the left is the landscape architect who designed the park, and he's walking around with neighbors to get a sense of what they want the layout to look like, what kind of amenities they're looking for. So for example, this lot was used generations ago for gardening and for playing horseshoe. So the design included a horseshoe pit and vegetable gardens. And then we plant together with volunteers, we maintain together with volunteers, and then we also host socials together with our partner, local community association, to get people out into the park, make sure that they're familiar with it, help them connect with their neighbors. Interesting here is that we were really able to leverage the park itself, but mostly those relationships that we built over the years through that conservation process, to take on a much larger project. So we've partnered with Baltimore County government and a few other nonprofit partners over the course of 2.5 years to better understand flooding in the neighborhood and try to come up with some solutions. So the project was called the Community Climate Change Resilience Project. NeighborSpace was responsible for the community outreach and engagement there. So we spent a lot of time knocking on doors, hosting interviews, putting out surveys, hosting community meetings to get an idea of where the flooding was happening, when, how bad it was, and how that was affecting people's lives. So that took a couple years. Then Baltimore County hired an engineering firm to come up with an infrastructure plan to address those flooding hotspots, if you will. And then we pivoted to implementation. So we held some workshops about what people could do at home to address flooding. That's a photo on the left, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But that was an interesting project and a great way to sort of move from that recreational space to restoration and education. So another fun thing here is that we have a really active Girl Scout troop. So we do have a raised bed garden at the one end of the park, and we've been working with them to provide a little education about growing your own food. And right now we're in the middle of rolling out a program focused on pollinators that will provide education about pollinators. We're going to put in a monarch way station, and then set up a community science program so the girls can observe and log data about the pollinators on the site. So as part of this implementation of this community climate change resilience project, we offered training on how to install a basescape at home, how to install a rain barrel at home. We gave away trees, basescape kits, and rain barrels. And we also, in addition to that, we worked with a local native plant nurseryman and landscaper to install for free basescapes at people's homes. So this is a photo of one of our residential basescapes on the left. I'm personally very proud of this because Mr. Jackson, who's the neighbor in the photo, was very, very skeptical of this project at the beginning, and it took a really long time to just kind of gain his trust. He is now one of our loudest advocates, is encouraging all his neighbors. He actually got 2 basescapes put in, and he's encouraging his neighbors to do the same, he's got 2 rain barrels installed. So that was a really fun outcome of that project. And on the right is one of our Girl Scouts who is planting strawberries, looks like, and they will harvest that during their meetings and on their own time. So as far as restoration outcomes, we installed 13 of these residential basescapes for a total of a little over 2,000 square feet. We handed out 30 trees, 10 basescape kits, and 50 rain barrels, 50. So that's a pretty good number. It was really constrained by budget, honestly. At this point, we hope to offer this effort again. We've removed countless pounds of invasives from the site, quite a bit of trash as well. We've planted hundreds of native trees, shrubs, and perennials at the park. Of course, there's that half acre that we conserved for the park. And quickly, this is one of our natural areas, the wooded lot in Owings Mills. And there we've done a lot of stream cleanups, tree giveaways. We just planted 3 microforests. And so now we're working with community members and volunteers to assess forest health, monitor those plantings. We do bird and herp surveys. So there too, it's similar, that engage, educate, and encourage life cycle, but in a slightly different form. So here's my contact information, and our website is on the bottom there. Sorry about the tech issues, Daniel.
All good. It happens to everyone. Thank you so much for that. That was a great presentation, and I'm excited to get a little bit more into your work with the discussion portion. All right, so we can switch on over to Bree and Kensey.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna share camera just to say hi to everyone and then turn it off just so we don't run into the same issue. I know Bree's on as well.
I'm right here.
Hey, Bree. Yeah, I'm Kensey. This is Bree. We're 2 of the co-founders of Richmond Fly Women. Yeah, I'll go ahead and switch into presentation mode, and I'm gonna shut off my camera.
Me too.
Oops, that's not the right place. Slideshow, share, Google Chrome. All right, can everyone see the slides?
I can see it.
All right.
Yep, we can.
All right. Go ahead and Bree will introduce us.
All right, so quick backstory. Kensey and I have known each other for a very long time, but we both came back to Richmond and we needed a hobby, and we kind of fell into fishing together. I had never fished with another woman. I always fished with the men in my family. So it was quite an experience, very a defining moment in my life. And so from there, we were like, well, there must be other women in our community that want to fish. And a year later, here we are, Richmond Fly Women, and our whole mission is to get women on the water, get women comfortable fly fishing on the water. And we do that through like monthly meetups, mostly local to Richmond on the James River. And we also meet up at local breweries to tie flies. So it's really just to get women comfortable fly fishing on the James, comfortable with their gear and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the reasons why we meet at breweries is because we do have folks coming up to us and ask us what we're doing. And it's an opportunity to introduce people to it that may not normally see it or be exposed to it, as opposed to if we do a meetup at Orvis, which we do sometimes. But obviously people that are going into Orvis are already into fly fishing. So
Yes.
It's a good way to just like get people curious, for sure. And so Bree and I were just kind of thinking about how this connects to environmental stewardship, and it's just kind of impossible for it not to be. When you start getting into fly fishing, it's not necessarily about catching a fish. There's art behind it. There's elegance. You have to learn what's eating, what kind of flies to tie or present the fish. Water temperature is important. Water flow is important. Time of year is important. The fish behavior, whether they're spawning, all those things. So you get so connected with it for trying to figure out the best time and best way to catch these fish that you start noticing things around you. The quality, you start caring about the trash you see, you start caring about shoreline erosion or if the water's too warm to hold a fish. So just like being a part of this sport really just exposes you to that. And yeah, sorry, Brie, go on.
No, definitely. And the more time you spend outside, I mean, the more you really love it. A lot of women that we fish with talk about that, like just the therapeutic side of being in nature, listening to the water, listening to the birds. We have a lot of women who are also birders that fish. Um, so when you're in an environment so much, you really do start to love it and start to care about it. I know whenever Kenzie's on the river, she's constantly picking up trash. We're constantly talking about water levels. The James River has been very low and it's messed with the fishing. We had a spring run for striper and we didn't have rain for the entire spring. The James was really low. The striper were not happy. So, and you can tell. So being exposed to it really does start to make you care.
Yeah, and on the long, so as you start to think about that, we have a few species of fish that come from Chesapeake Bay and spawn directly downtown in Richmond, and it's kind of a cool opportunity for people to learn about those anadromous fish, the striped bass that Bree was talking about. And we also have shad. We have American shad and we have hickory shad. And as you start to catch them, you learn the difference between the two. And American shad is, you can count on one hand how many of those fish get pulled up in the James River every year. Uh, so people start caring about the conservation efforts because they're like, oh, this is a fun fighting fish, and I really like having diversity in my catches, and they get interested in it and what they can do. They educate each other. Maybe they're going out fishing with somebody who's keeping a fish. And you're like, yeah, I know you're allowed to, but did you know when you keep spawning fish, you're detrimentally impacting this for the next generation and stuff like that. So I think it's just kind of a snowballing effect of just caring about those things. And traditionally, these spaces are, occupied by men, and bringing in women, bringing in children, you start getting different parts of the community caring about it and sharing that. So naturally, they'll care about environmental stewardship, pass it on to their kids, and it's just more people caring about it, more people talking about it, which is wonderful. Yeah, and so trash cleanup is a big part of it. Also, if you're into trout fishing and things like that, you start paying attention to the bugs that are in the water, um, the life cycle of the bugs. If any of you guys do water quality testing, you might know about like the EPT scale, where you look at like stoneflies, mayflies, and caddisflies in the stream to determine water quality. So people start getting interested in that because they care about what the fish are eating. So it's just there's so many opportunities and avenues for people to nerd out and get excited about it. And eventually that reaches policy and outreach. We do a little bit of there's a few groups that we work with that do outreach. The Virginia Wilderness Committee is working on roadless access, so we connected them with some of our girls to talk about roadless access for fishing. And then also Quail Forever connected her with them to talk about that. Lots of advocacy groups that are connected and closely related. A lot of people that fly fish do upland bird hunting, and for upland birds like grouse, they really care about the conservation of those types of spaces. So it just all is connected and sometimes sad and overwhelming, but also very exciting and empowering to understand the environment around you and care about it.
Yeah.
And
Go
one
ahead.
of the groups that we work with is Mayfly Project and Bree. Do you want to talk about them?
Sure. So the Mayfly Project, and there's a bunch of different chapters all throughout the United States, but we just got one in Richmond. And so it is a program for children who are in foster care. And it places a child with a mentor or multiple mentors, and they basically teach them how to fish. So a lot of these kids, especially in the Richmond area, they know that the James River is there, but they might not have never accessed it. And so the fly fishing really helps them get on the water and once again care about the water. The Mayfly project, they at the end of it, I think it's maybe like an 8-week program. The children get their own fly fishing rod. They get a bunch of flies. So they've taught them this skill and this hobby that hopefully they will take with them for the rest of their life. So it's really cool. It's just connecting kids with nature. Very important. And we do have some women from Richmond Fly Women who are going to be mentors in that. But they're always looking for people to help them raise money or people to buy their merch or maybe mentor in the future.
Yeah, I think money is always the biggest concern for things like this. Bree and I know that because we pay for a lot of stuff out of pocket, but and another group we work with is Keep Virginia Cozy. This is actually how we met Abby, who connected us with this group. So thank you, Abby. But they are an amazing group founded in Richmond, but they're starting to branch out a bit. But they organize litter cleanups, lots of conservation efforts, work with businesses and things. And I guess since 2017, they've removed more than 1 million pounds of trash from communities, which is pretty amazing. But it just kind of inspires me. Like every time I take the boat out or, go out on the water, I always make sure to come back with more trash than I brought out, so you can bring it, bringing a little trash bag. It just helps. And, just little bits. So that's a great organization. Love working with them. And we're actually doing an event with them tomorrow, right in downtown Richmond. There's a bluegrass event where there's bluegrass, lots of nonprofits, and proceeds go towards that. So we'll be there if anybody's going to that.
Yeah. So if you want to contact us, we have a big presence on Instagram. But we also are on Facebook, and we also have a website, richmondflywomen.org. So one of our main things that we use is WhatsApp. And just today, Kensey was on there saying, hey, I think we're going to be at the river on Friday. Who wants to come out? We'll have a bunch of rods if you need, and we'll be there fishing. So those are the ways to get in contact with us. We love fishing. That's basically our big thing is we just really love to fish, and we really love to share that love with other people.
Yeah, we actually just got some photos earlier this week from a woman who learned how to fish with us, Celeste, and she went out and got her own rod, and she just caught her own fish all by herself with no one around this week, and she was just so excited and that she was like able to do it and felt comfortable going out by herself, and it was like that is literally the goal. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah. We did it. We can retire now.
We did it. All right, all done. Bye guys. Thanks for hanging out. But yeah, that's us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that great presentation, Bree and Kensey. So we can now kind of transition into the discussion portion of this roundtable. As said earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop those in the chat, and we will try to get as many as we can. We have a few questions that have been sent with registration, so we can kind of start off, get the conversation rolling with those, and again, please put any questions you have in the chat. So I will start with one. This can be to all of the presenters. It's about outreach and audience engagement. So how do you get the word out about inclusive programming to diverse audiences? This person was especially curious on how you might reach Spanish-speaking community members or people who speak other languages. So just how does that outreach kind of work with your organizations?
I can speak to that a little bit. We've had limited success, I think, drawing in our Spanish-speaking residents. It's really difficult right now. A lot of families just aren't comfortable gathering outside. But we do translate all our materials into Spanish, or almost all. We're pretty good, but occasionally we'll forget. And then I think that individual contact is the most successful way to do that. So like this past weekend when we had our live music event, we brought in a Latin American band, and we just go out and talk to some of the families who show up. I would say, I think my short answer to that question is that we use a really diverse set of communication channels. So we do still do a lot of printing. We'll put flyers. We go door to door. If the community doesn't have a system for that, we'll put flyers on doorsteps. We hang them in libraries, rec centers. We send out emails through, or the community partner will send out emails, social media. We'll use any and all channels. Some of our parks also have like a bulletin board, so we'll post things there. That has seemed to be Nextdoor is another app that some of our community leaders use. So it takes a little bit. Some channels work better with certain communities, so you have to kind of get to know your community a little bit to know what the best channel is.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So Richmond Fly Women is still very new, and we're still basically just a meetup group or a club. We're not a nonprofit yet. So all of our information is done for the most part on Instagram, posting reels, or on Facebook, or just being out in the community and people coming up to us. But as we grow and hopefully towards a nonprofit, that is definitely one thing that we will consider.
Yeah, it's a hard question too, because, as you see, me and Bria are two white girls. So it's hard to know, like, what's appropriate for us to, start these spaces, or whether or not we create safe spaces for this and are the appropriate people for leading these spaces. But open to feedback and suggestions, because the goal is to make the sport as inclusive as possible and get more folks out there. Yeah, we know Simone. He's helped us with some of our he's actually donated trips to our group. Or sorry, he donated lessons when we did a fundraiser this January, and we bought, with some of the money we raised, we bought a trip with him for two of our girls. But yeah, he probably could. Yeah, he used to work at Virginia Poverty Law Center, so he has a lot of connections with like how to work with Spanish speaking folks in the community. I think there are a lot of avenues, but he also was talking to me about how when they started Current Culture, he tried to start a women's group, but because it was him starting it, it didn't jump off. And I think it is really important for leaders of communities to be led by people that they can relate to and not feel like it's being overtaken. So we're there to offer that space, but and make it there. But there is something to be said about space being led by people that you can relate to. But oh, congratulations, Julie. That's amazing. Yeah, it's so fun, like just connecting with nature and learning about it more. It can become an obsession.
All right, yeah, thank you for those responses. Another question sent with registration is kind of about funding and keeping your organizations afloat. I think you guys might both have different perspectives. I know Kensey and Bree, you said you are not yet a nonprofit. You said you pay for some things yourselves. So to both or all three of you guys, what are some best practices, either that your organization does or that you might see personally, to turn recreationalists into members and eventually donors, to kind of keep your work going? And if you could talk a little bit about, Phyllis, about how your organization is funded.
Sure. That's a question that I've been thinking a lot about lately. So, or not lately, in the last 2 years. So just a quick picture of how we're funded. We are largely grant funded. That includes federal, state, county, foundation grants, the whole gamut. So I'm constantly applying for grants, managing grants, reporting on grants, and those range in size. The thing with grants, which if you work for or with a nonprofit, I'm sure you're aware, The grant money is always what we call restricted to tied to a certain project. So even if that includes staff money, which salary, which I don't usually apply for grants that don't. Even if that includes salary, it's salary for work on that project. So there's running a nonprofit, running programs, and putting in projects takes a lot of staff time that grants sometimes don't or won't fund. So we do need that those charitable gifts from individuals to keep the organization running. We have a really low overhead, which I'm sure a lot of small nonprofits do, right? If you donate to us, I did the math last year, it's like somewhere between 90 and 95 cents of your dollar is going to programs, right? So we run a lean organization, but still there's administrative expenses and a lot of costs like that. So we're currently working on building out that fundraising program. I do not have a silver bullet for turning park visitors or volunteers into members or donors, whatever you want to call them. That's something that we're really working on. If you run into me more than once, you're going to hear this a lot. Those personal relationships are key. So if there's one thing that I can say, that's a successful way to turn a event participant volunteer into a donor, it's establishing and maintaining those personal relationships, whether it's you, one of your staff, a board member, another volunteer, inviting them to a different event, to visit a different park with you, sending them a quick email, hey, you donated, here's where this project stands. That is really the one thing that I can say has been successful. Otherwise, I don't think there's like a one size fits all, but we're working on a few different things, including engagement events where it's not like a volunteer work day and not necessarily like live music, but an event that's open to the public that we send out to all our stakeholders, where they can do something that's a little bit different from the usual volunteer things. So those are being spearheaded by my board members and will, I think, be very varied. That's kind of an exciting new thing we're trying.
So for Richmond Fly Women, we are accepting donations of anything that has to do with fly fishing, whether it's fly tying materials, rods, waders. Our goal is hopefully within the next year or two to get enough stuff that we can create a lending library. The great thing about Richmond is there's a diverse fish population. The bad thing about that is a lot of times you need multiple rods to fish the different fish, and that's a lot of money. So our goal is to have that, and then women can come and be like, hey, I'm going to do a muskie trip. I need a muskie fly, which are very big and complicated to tie, and I need a rod. And so we can lend that to them. They can check it out and they can go on their DIY fishing trip, and then they bring it back when they're done. That way they don't have to purchase and spend hundreds of dollars on something that they might not want to do again after they get that fish or have that experience. So that's one of our goals. And right now it's all through donations. We do sell merch when we do fly fishing festivals and things like that. Another thing that we do is when we try to raise money or when we make money at festivals is we use that to send women on trips with guides. I was mostly self-taught. I've been fishing for a long time, first 10 years, self-taught. And it wasn't until I had the money to go with guides that I really started to get the hang of it and learn how to do it and learn to fish for red drum or muskie or things like that, the harder fish to get. But that is very expensive. So that's another thing that we try to do is to raise money so that we can send women on fishing trips. But right now it is very grassroots, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we buy merch out of pocket and then we try to pay ourselves back, but also buy things for the team. So so Bree and I are definitely going to work on becoming nonprofit in the next month once we have the time to sit down and go through all the paperwork. But also I saw one of the questions was about, the price of fishing licenses and stuff, but also as like a nonprofit, when we have members, we're going to have membership fees. So I think it's an interesting question to think about, like whether we can allocate some money for people to apply for grants to cover their membership fee, to cover fishing license and help for that. But fishing license in Virginia aren't too pricey for an annual license. But if you start wanting to travel to West Virginia or Pennsylvania or travel, you got to buy a fishing license everywhere you go, and that can definitely add up. But the nice thing about fishing licenses is that money goes directly back into the resource, Department of Wildlife Resources helps stock fish, helps like restore stuff. So it is a good investment. But I think to keep the sport accessible, we do have to think about how to fund those small things and not just about big trips, but just little things. Oh, that's great. I love that. I don't think so, but I never really, so we have like so she's asking if our public libraries in Richmond have gear. We do have a gear consignment shop, and I was thinking about talking to them about maybe partnering with them, but I never really thought about the public library, so maybe Bree, that's something that we can do as well. But it's,
Okay.
yeah, we definitely want to build that up because, also people grow out of their waders and then, they try to sell them or something. Like maybe we'll be able to like buy for a cheap price this gear from people, and it's just I can't, I don't have the space to store it in my home, so we need a place and a place that people can go during the day to go look at things and try things on. So public library is a great option. I love that. Thanks for that. Yeah, and actually, Kevin, that's a good point. A lot of it's kind of like a capitalist perspective, but like, yeah, there's, you know, women and other underrepresented demographics are the next frontier for fishing. Like they've already got all the old white dudes that they need. So like it is an important way for them to expand into the industry, and those fly shops are starting to look into it. A lot of people reach out to Bree and I and ask if like, they can interview us or take our photos or something. So it is like the next frontier. But I'd love for the face of that to be other women and not necessarily industry, but they can sponsor us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Yeah, this is great. I love this. Yeah,
All
Jared has
right.
been a great partner as well. Thank you. I'm going to have to review all these comments afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for adding some stuff in the chat to the attendees. It seems like a lot of cool collaboration here with information about libraries. I also didn't know that libraries provided fishing routes. That's something new. Oh, it looks like we have a question from Lorenzo, and this actually kind of lines up with the next question I was going to ask. Do you have partnerships with businesses? And I was going to ask about any collaboration with local governments and how different government organizations and agencies can support the work that you guys do. So Lorenzo says maybe small businesses could rent out or offer free equipment rentals. Could be a good way to get access to equipment and build a better customer base.
Yeah, so we don't have any small business partners yet. I mean, Orvis River Road gives us a lot. Like they give us their space and materials. And then the Department of Wildlife Resources did donate 10 5-weight rods to us with reels, which was pretty amazing. And have offered space and stuff like that. But it would be cool to reach out to more, retail, small businesses in the area. Like we do have some that we could probably talk to. Once we're nonprofit, it's really hard right now because we're not a nonprofit. A lot of businesses just like can't or won't work with us. So that definitely has to be a priority. But I think going with folks that have other infrastructure is the way to go for that. And we'll be getting a board together. So, maybe we'll have some public meetings where people can give us ideas and we'll reach out to y'all and you can tell us all your ideas. And we also partner with Chesapeake women anglers who have a presence in it's like all like it's mostly like Northern Virginia and Maryland, like near Chesapeake Bay. I guess all of Maryland's near Chesapeake Bay, but Chesapeake Women Anglers is in that area, and then Coastal Fly Women, which is over in like the Chesapeake, Virginia Beach area. So we all work together very closely, and so it's it's an opportunity for us to connect all along the Chesapeake watershed, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Phyllis, if you have anything to share about how your organization kind of works with either other nonprofits or local agencies on expanding access and recreation and green space.
Yeah, we do a lot of partnering. So let me see if I can give you a succinct answer there. I would say for the businesses, that's kind of together with the charitable donation program that I was mentioning earlier, where we have a new development plan or fundraising plan. So that's part of that. We do partner. I receive support either in kind donations or financial contributions from some of the businesses that we contract with for projects too, because that's just kind of easy. You're working with a landscaping company on a project. You ask, hey, would you throw in $1,000? We do have a sponsorship program that we run, but it's still pretty small. As far as local governments, so we're a little bit unique. NeighborSpace is actually written into Baltimore County Code. It was founded to address, to provide services that Baltimore County government had a hard time providing. So we do work closely. I would like to work together more closely with Baltimore County government. So I'm working on developing more and strengthening existing relationships there. But Baltimore County's been really supportive. We are written into code to receive a certain percentage of a certain fee. That amount is, I would say, volatile. So we never know how much we're going to get. Previous county executive did even that out. So that's a good chunk of our budget. So definitely grateful to Baltimore County there. And then we do receive an operating grant. I just heard that we're receiving it for the third year in a row this coming year, starting July 1st. That has been profoundly helpful because, again, like I said earlier, that salary is often most difficult to fund. So that's a really great grant program that Baltimore County runs. So yeah, so we're lucky here. Oh, and then nonprofits. We have a ton of environmental nonprofits here. So we work together with quite a few. Blue Water Baltimore for events and capital projects. That's one that people here might know. There's a number of land trusts. There were a couple people on here from Gunpowder Valley Conservancy. They do really awesome work. So we're part of a partners group there. And there's a number of other coalitions in the area that we work together with.
Great, thanks for sharing. I want to note we have about 10 minutes left, so if you do have any questions, now is the time to drop them in the chat. I can move on to one that kind of talks about programming and making accessible programming. So this person from registration said, for those of us working in environmental education, what's one thing we can start doing to make our programs more accessible? And there's another question that's kind of related to this and more specific about fly fishing. How do you suggest folks get exposed or to start learning about fly fishing? So maybe Phyllis, we can start with you on accessible programming and then move to Kensey and Bree.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, this sounds so canned, but I'm going to say it anyway. Meet people where they are, right? That's easier for us because we have these physical locations in the middle of these neighborhoods, right? So that makes it a little bit easier to meet people where they live and work and play. That said, I think there is a little bit of a misconception that, build a green space and they will come. That is not true. At least for the most part, we have noticed that we need to actively bring people out, invite them into that space. So again, we have a designated community partner, which is usually a community association at every site. So we work closely with them. So the community association does the messaging, the advertising. Another, I think, big thing is finding a date and time. That varies a little bit from neighborhood to neighborhood, depending on whether it's a lot of young working families, a lot of seniors. So we work with them to find topics for events or workshops that the neighborhood will be interested in, schedule a date and time that works for them, the advertising through using channels that their neighbors are used to. So I think having that community on the ground community partner is crucial. And that, accessibility, I think from a physical perspective can be difficult. A lot of our areas, a lot of our sites are more natural, so it's a mulch trail. We do, when we can, we put in the most accessible trail surface that we can. So in our parks, that we do try to keep it permeable, so that can be a challenge there. So there's a couple of different surfaces we've used. We have put in ramps to certain parks, handrails, that kind of thing. But sometimes we're limited just by the topography of the site.
I put some places in the chat because I figured it'd be easier if you guys see it. But there's a lot of groups in this area for learning how to fly fish. I think the biggest gap occurs like after you do a one-on-one course, what do you do next? So after you do a free one-on-one course, finding a group to connect with to get people out fishing, I think is the move. But there's some resources there. And also, of course, there's us. Feel free to reach out to us. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Um, I think maybe one last question to kind of wrap up is how can we get involved, or how can other communities get involved and support the mission of your two groups? Or on a kind of different side of that, if somebody wants to start a group similar, what advice would you give? So you can kind of pick whichever question.
So Kensey and I were talking about this, about like starting the group. And honestly, you almost just have to do it. We started ours because there wasn't one in Richmond. We looked first and then we didn't see it. So Kensey was like, let's put it on Instagram that we want to fish and see if there's any women. And I know you say if you build it, they will come, but maybe not for parks, but for this, like it happened. Like we were not expecting the amount of people to have interests that do, the amount of women. And it's just, we've been inundated with women all ages, all backgrounds, who want to learn how to fish. And it's almost, you just have to put your nose to the grindstone and do it. So yeah, just do it.
Oh, I was trying to unmute. I also think that Bree and I try to keep ourselves in check. It's easy to exhaust yourself because it's exciting and you want everyone to get involved, but you also want to make sure that you're still enjoying the sport and setting good boundaries. So we try to make sure that we take breaks that we need to and not overcommit. But everyone's different. I think if this was our full-time job, it might be a little bit different. But Bree and I both have, lives outside of this. So commit to what you're willing to do and start a club, but also just be realistic and it's okay to step back, you know.
Daniel, do you mind? Sorry, what was the question? How can people get involved, basically? Did I?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, good. Sorry, I got totally drawn into the fishing. Yeah, so there's a couple of ways if you are in the Baltimore area. So again, our service area is is very well defined, but we have colleagues all over the place. If you have a green space that you would like to conserve, or if you would like us to look with you to see if we can find one in your neighborhood, hit us up. My contact information, I'm sure, will be shared so we can talk. We've got some mapping. We have a mapping tool that we can use. So that's one way to get involved. If you're satisfied with the green space that you have access to, awesome. That's great. You can come volunteer with us in our parks. So we have a lot of volunteer events in the spring, a little bit less in the fall. Summer, we don't shut down, but it gets so hot and muggy that people aren't super excited to come out and pull weeds. But we're always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in donating time and elbow grease, check out our events calendar. I'm also very interested always in people who have certain skill sets or expertise that ties into our work. So if you have something to offer, whether, maybe you have good plant ID skills, I would love to have some volunteers that can, when we host an event, can work side by side with our volunteers and neighbors. and help them with ID and share a little bit of information about what they know. So that's just one example. There's, I could also use someone who's really good with a chainsaw. That would be helpful. Expertise, if you're, a planner, a landscape architect, a community organizer. We have some board positions open too. And then, of course, I'm just going to say it because I'm no longer shy about this. I've been doing this job for three years now. Give us your money. We will take donations from anyone all the time because, like I said, it is we're constantly, I'm constantly applying for grants and soliciting donations from individuals and businesses. But yes, it is kind of like what Kensey and what they were saying. It's a lot of work. We all work really hard. We run a really lean organization, but we are absolutely dependent on those gifts from individuals like you all. So that's an important way to support your local nonprofits and grassroots groups.
Yeah, thank you. And we will be following up to the attendees with extra information and contact information if you ever want to reach out. So again, we thank all the speakers for contributions today and the attendees for all your questions that you sent in previously. Just for context, our next roundtable webinar will be on July 15th, and the focus will be healthy forests. So we look forward to seeing you guys then.
Thanks so much. Pleasure.
Thank you.